Thank you, Anne. Thank you, Judith. Thank you for those readings. God is revealed in a variety of different forms in the Bible. We see God revealed as a voice speaking from heaven. We see God revealed as a physical dove, as the Holy Spirit. And we see God revealed as Jesus. Next month, I'm going to start a midweek Lent course where we're going to be looking at the book of Revelation. In that final book of the Bible, God is revealed in a variety of different ways. But what I want us to do right now is think about the first book of the Bible, Genesis, and think about how God is revealed to us there. The very first way that God chooses to reveal himself to us is as a creator. The very first way in which God reveals himself to us is by saying 4 words. In the Bible, the first thing that God says is, "Let there be light." But as well as the Bible, I want us to think about science today. Let's think about what science tells us about the creation of the universe. Firstly, it is thought that the universe began around 14 billion years ago, when something called inflation theory tells us that the universe expanded from nothing to something really big in the tiniest fraction of a second. So in what might have been maybe the time it took God to say the word light, there was already 62 trillion miles of creation for that light to inhabit. God wasn't done with creating. God's universe continued to expand, but at a much slower rate than that initial fraction of a second. And then 4 billion years ago, the rate of expansion started accelerating. Nobody really knows, but a good guess is that now the universe is expanding at a rate of 2,500 miles per minute. Because of those 4 words spoken at the beginning of the Bible, there are miles and miles of the universe still being created by God every single second of your life. Our God, before anything else is said or understood, was and is and always will be a creator. Why am I telling you this? Why am I trying to put images of a universe that's constantly being created by a creator God in your mind? Well, because I'm trying to get you to marvel at the vastness of the creation of our creator God. But I also want us to think about what Genesis tells us. And Genesis 1 goes on from telling us that God created light to telling us that God created all things. And at every stage we see that God didn't just create all things. We also see that he saw all things. And Genesis chapter 1 repeatedly tells us that with all things that God created, God said they were good. All of God's creation is something that God has declared to be good. What about us? Do we see everything that God has created and see it as good? And if so, are we looking after it? Or are we destroying what God has created? I want us to think today about how we should look after God's creation. Now then, there are generally 3 different responses when a preacher mentions climate change and creation care in a sermon. Some people are delighted to hear it being preached and are encouraged. A second set of people are summed up by somebody who once told me, "I don't come to church to be lectured to about stuff in the news. I come to hear about God." That is a very valid response. We come to church to encounter God. That's why I'm talking about how God is revealed in the Bible. If we want to follow God and please God, then we need to be aware of what is precious to God. A third response is to say, yeah, but what difference can I make? Again, that is fair enough. Organisations can have a bigger impact than individuals. That's why the Diocese of Bristol has declared a climate emergency and urged churches to make this a missional priority. Our church will work with the charity A Rocha over the next couple of months and look to reduce our carbon footprint as we work with their eco-church material. Organisations can have a big impact, but individuals can still help. Changing individual habits is hard, and there's often contradictory advice about what the best thing to do is. But I want to challenge you to do 3 really easy things this week, and I want you to talk about them in our Zoom session after this service. First challenge: go online this week and change your energy supplier. We all know that burning fossil fuels is bad for the environment. This is something really effective that we can do. It's the most effective thing that you can do that you won't even notice has happened. I changed my energy supplier last month when the energy tariff was up for renewal. And actually the 100% green energy tariff that I renewed with was only £3 more expensive each month than the most cheap tariff I could find. Switch, it's easy and it really helps. Second challenge: talk about this stuff. Talk about looking after God's creation and your response to the climate challenge. Talk about it in the Zoom session. Talk about what you do to be green. Then embrace the fact that church is talking about this stuff. Embrace the material that church is putting out at the moment around the climate emergency. Think about what you can do. Third challenge: get out into God's creation this week. Go out for a walk, or better still, a run. Or if you can't do that, just go out into your garden, or just look out of the window at the night sky, at the stars that God flung up there. Be inspired by the awe of God's creation. Remember that God says that creation is good. As a follower of God, what are you going to do to look after what God has declared to be good? Finally, just think right now. How much more universe has been created in the minutes in which I've been speaking? How much more of the universe has our Creator God been creating? God cares so much about God's creation. God has said it's good. Let's show that as followers of God, we think it's good too.